You are here with By the Cover. Today we're going to be reviewing NOS4A2 by Joe Hill. This book was about 720 pages and took me 7 days to read. Now going into this book, I did have a couple apprehensions. Given the name, I was just figuring this was going to be a straight up vampire story, and I am not a fan of vampires. But I heard the book was really good, and so I decided to give it a try anyway. Secondly, this was my first Joe Hill book, and I found out that Joe Hill was Stephen King's son, which made me apprehensive because I read a lot of Stephen King, and one of the things I dislike about King is that he can go on and ramble about things that just don't matter. Sometimes he does that to great effect, but there's other times it just annoys the living crap out of you. So this book being 720 pages, I was thinking that it's possible that that kind of got passed down in his writing style, and Joe may exhibit that same quality. Luckily, neither of those concerns ended up being an issue, so this review will be spoiler-free. Overall, I would give the book a rating of 9.7 out of 10. There was very little that I didn't like about the book, and the things that I didn't like about the book were fairly minor. Go over the things that I liked. The plot was absolutely excellent from beginning to end. All of the characters were awesome, even the minor ones. There were two antagonists in this book, and both of them were great as well. The story wasn't emotionally impacting all the way through it, but there were a couple scenes that did have me tearing up. For the times that it was emotionally impacting, it hit pretty hard. The atmosphere and setting was damn near perfect. And I thought the ending was great. I thought it could have been a little bit better, but for the most part, I didn't have a problem with it. The writing was focused throughout the entire book. I didn't feel like there was a lot of filler, which was a great surprise. Needless to say, I love this book, and this being my first Joe Hill novel, I want to read more by him, definitely. One of the things that I didn't like, and I'm surprised I liked the book as much as I did given how much I wasn't really digging the primary character. Primary character, her name is Vic, and she's extremely rough around the edges. She doesn't always make smart decisions, or decisions that I agree with, or sometimes decisions that make sense. Her nickname fits her perfectly, and that's kind of how I viewed her throughout the story. The story does later reveal more of kind of why she is the way that she is. So I grew to like and love her character more towards the end of the book, but going through the majority of it, I wasn't a large fan. But I also didn't hate spending time with her, so it was kind of like, she's okay. And because of that, that's really the biggest downfall of this story. But it didn't hinder my enjoyment of it to the point that it made any real big difference on how I viewed the book at the end. And like I said, it did get better towards the end. It's a book that had great pacing, and I enjoyed the journey all the way through. The other thing that was just a slight gripe was sometimes they'll tell different events from different points of view, so you end up going over the same actions multiple times, which got just a little boring, but there was only about 20 pages of it. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a big deal. The other thing I found slightly unrealistic was the amount of just abuse physically that the primary character could take. There was one point in the story, it's kind of like the movies you see where somebody just takes a tremendous beating and bones are broken, and then they get up right after and do a chase scene or something. I think that was only one part in the book, and it just seemed quite unrealistic to me. Those were my three main issues with the story, and two of them are extremely minor. The third one didn't end up being a big deal. So overall, extremely high rankings for this book. I definitely recommend that you check it out, even if you don't like vampire stories. This did end up having vampire themes, but it was quite creative, and it didn't put me off at all. So hope you enjoyed this review. Catch you later.